Tonight, we drift into a quieter world, a world where ancient forests whisper secrets, and every word is a gentle bridge to peace. Whether it is a lesson of the heart, a hero's journey, or a dream from long ago, you don't need to follow every detail. You don't need to hold on to any thought. Just listen. Let the rhythm of the tale wash over you. And as your body grows heavy, let the magic of these stories carry you away into a deep and effortless sleep. Brother Lustig. There was on a time a great war, and when it came to an end, many soldiers were discharged. Then Brother Lustig also received his dismissal, and besides that, nothing but a small loaf of contract bread and 4 kreuzers in money, with which he departed. Saint Peter had, however, placed himself in his way in the shape of a poor beggar, and when Brother Lustig came up, he begged alms of him. Brother Lustig replied, "Dear beggar man, what am I to give you? I have been a soldier, and have received my dismissal, and have nothing but this little loaf of contract bread and 4 kreuzers of money. When that is gone, I shall have to beg as well as you. Still, I will give you something." Thereupon, he divided the loaf into 4 parts and gave the apostle one of them, and a kreutzer likewise. Saint Peter thanked him, went onwards, and threw himself again in the soldier's way as a beggar, but in another shape. And when he came up, begged a gift of him as before. Brother Lustig spoke as he had done before, and again gave him a quarter of the loaf and 1 kreutzer. Saint Peter thanked him and went onwards, but for the 3rd time placed himself in another shape as a beggar on the road, and spoke to Brother Lustig. Brother Lustig gave him also the 3rd quarter of bread and the 3rd kreutzer. Saint Peter thanked him, and Brother Lustig went onwards, and had but a quarter of the loaf and 1 kreutzer. With that, he went into an inn, ate the bread, and ordered 1 kreutzer's worth of beer. When he had had it, he journeyed onwards, and then Saint Peter, who had assumed the appearance of a discharged soldier, met and spoke to him thus: "Good day, comrade, canst thou not give me a bit of bread and a kreutzer to get a drink?" "Where am I to procure it?" answered Brother Lustig. "I have been discharged, and I got nothing but a loaf of ammunition bread and 4 kreuzers in money. I met 3 beggars on the road, and I gave each of them a quarter of my bread and 1 kreutzer. The last quarter I ate in the inn, and had a drink with the last kreutzer. Now my pockets are empty, and if thou also hast nothing, we can go a-begging together." "No," answered Saint Peter. We need not quite do that. I know a little about medicine, and I will soon earn as much as I require by that." "Indeed," said Brother Lustig, "I know nothing of that, so I must go and beg alone." "Just come with me," said Saint Peter, "and if I earn anything, thou shalt have half of it." "All right," said Brother Lustig. So they went away together. Then they came to a peasant's house, inside which they heard loud lamentations and cries. So they went in, and there the husband was lying sick unto death, and very near his end, and his wife was crying and weeping quite loudly. "Stop that howling and crying," said Saint Peter. "I will make the man well again." And he took a salve out of his pocket and healed the sick man in a moment, so that he could get up and was in perfect health. In great delight, the man and his wife said, "How can we reward you? What shall we give you?" But Saint Peter would take nothing, and the more the peasant folks offered him, the more he refused. Brother Lustig, however, nudged Saint Peter and said, "Take something. Sure enough, we are in need of it." At length, the woman brought a lamb and said to Saint Peter that he really must take that, but he would not. Then Brother Lustig gave him a poke in the side and said, "Do take it, you stupid fool. We are in great want of it." Then Saint Peter said at last, "Well, I will take the lamb, but I won't carry it. If thou wilt insist on having it, thou must carry it." "That is nothing," said Brother Lustig. "I will easily carry it," and took it on his shoulder. Then they departed and came to a wood. But Brother Lustig had begun to feel the lamb heavy, and he was hungry. So he said to Saint Peter, "Look, that's a good place. We might cook the lamb there and eat it." "As you like," answered Saint Peter, "but I can't have anything to do with the cooking. If thou wilt cook, there is a kettle for thee, and in the meantime I will walk about a little until it is ready. Thou must, however, not begin to eat until I have come back. I will come at the right time." "Well, go then," said Brother Lustig. "I understand cookery. I will manage it." Then Saint Peter went away, and Brother Lustig killed the lamb, lighted a fire, threw the meat into the kettle, and boiled it. The lamb was, however, quite ready, and the Apostle Peter had not come back, so Brother Lustig took it out of the kettle, cut it up, and found the heart. "That is said to be the best part," said he, and tasted it. But at last he ate it all up. At length Saint Peter returned and said, "Thou mayest eat the whole of the lamb thyself. I will only have the heart. Give me that." Then Brother Lustig took a knife and fork and pretended to look anxiously about amongst the lamb's flesh, but not to be able to find the heart. And at last he said abruptly, "There is none here." "But where can it be?" said the apostle. "I don't know," replied Brother Lustig. "But look what fools we both are to seek for the lamb's heart, and neither of us to remember that a lamb has no heart." "Oh," said Saint Peter, "that is something quite new. Every animal has a heart. Why is a lamb to have none?" "No, be assured, my brother," said Brother Lustig, "that a lamb has no heart. Just consider it seriously, and then you will see that it really has none." "Well, it is all right," said Saint Peter. "If there is no heart, then I want none of the lamb. Thou mayest eat it alone." "What I can't eat now, I will carry away in my knapsack," said Brother Lustig, and he ate half the lamb and put the rest in his knapsack. They went farther, and then Saint Peter caused a great stream of water to flow right across their path, and they were obliged to pass through it. Said Saint Peter, "Do thou go first." "No," answered Brother Lustig, "thou must go first." And he thought, "If the water is too deep, I will stay behind." Then Saint Peter strode through it, and the water just reached to his knee. So Brother Lustig began to go through also, but the water grew deeper and reached to his throat. Then he cried, "Brother, help me." Saint Peter said, "Then wilt thou confess that thou hast eaten the lamb's heart?" "No," said he, "I have not eaten it." Then the water grew deeper still and rose to his mouth. "Help me, brother," cried the soldier. Saint Peter said, "Then wilt thou confess that thou hast eaten the lamb's heart?" "No," he replied, "I have not eaten it." Saint Peter, however, would not let him be drowned, but made the water sink and helped him through it. Then they journeyed onwards and came to a kingdom where they heard that the king's daughter lay sick unto death. "Hollo, brother," said the soldier to Saint Peter, "this is a chance for us. If we can heal her, we shall be provided for life." But Saint Peter was not half quick enough for him. "Come, lift your legs, my dear brother," said he, "that we may get there in time." But Saint Peter walked slower and slower, though Brother Lustig did all he could to drive and push him on, and at last they heard that the princess was dead. "Now we are done for," said Brother Lustig. "That comes of thy sleepy way of walking." "Just be quiet," answered Saint Peter. "I can do more than cure sick people. I can bring dead ones to life again." "Well, if thou canst do that," said Brother Lustig, "it's all right, but thou shouldst earn at least half the kingdom for us by that." Then they went to the royal palace, where everyone was in great grief. But St. Peter told the king that he would restore his daughter to life. He was taken to her and said, "Bring me a kettle and some water." And when that was brought, he bade everyone go out and allowed no one to remain with him but Brother Lustig. Then he cut off all the dead girl's limbs and threw them in the water, lighted a fire beneath the kettle, and boiled them. And when the flesh had fallen away from the bones, he took out the beautiful white bones and laid them on a table and arranged them together in their natural order. When he had done that, he stepped forward and said 3 times, "In the name of the Holy Trinity, dead woman, arise." And at the 3rd time, the princess arose, living healthy and beautiful. Then the king was in the greatest joy and said to St. Peter, "Ask for thy reward. Even if it were half my kingdom, I would give it thee." But St. Peter said, "I want nothing for it." "O thou tomfool, thought Brother Lustig to himself, and nudged his comrade's side and said, "Don't be so stupid. If thou hast no need of anything, I have." St. Peter, however, would have nothing, but as the king saw that the other would very much like to have something, he ordered his treasurer to fill Brother Lustig's knapsack with gold. Then they went on their way, and when they came to a forest, St. Peter said to Brother Lustig, "Now we will divide the gold." "Yes," he replied, "we will." So St. Peter divided the gold and divided it into 3 heaps. Brother Lustig thought to himself, "What craze has he got in his head? Now he is making 3 shares, and there are only 2 of us." But St. Peter said, "I have divided it exactly. There is 1 share for me, 1 for thee, and 1 for him who ate the lamb's heart." "Oh, I ate that," replied Brother Lustig, and hastily swept up the gold. "You may trust what I say, but how can that be true?" said St. Peter. "When a lamb has no heart, what brother, what can you be thinking of? Lambs have hearts like other animals. Why should only they have none?" "Well, so be it," said St. Peter. "Keep the gold to yourself, but I will stay with you no longer. I will go my way alone." "As you like, dear brother," answered Brother Lustig. "Farewell." Then St. Peter went a different road, but Brother Lustig thought, "It is a good thing that he has taken himself off. He is certainly a strange saint, after all." Then he had money enough, but did not know how to manage it. Squandered it, gave it away, and when some time had gone by, once more had nothing. Then he arrived in a certain country where he heard that a king's daughter was dead. "Oh, ho!" and thought he, "that may be a good thing for me. I will bring her to life again, and see that I am paid as I ought to be." So he went to the king and offered to raise the dead girl to life again. Now the king had heard that a discharged soldier was traveling about and bringing dead persons to life again, and thought that Brother Lustig was the man. But as he had no confidence in him, he consulted his counselors first, who said that he might give it a trial, as his daughter was dead. Then Brother Lustig ordered water to be brought to him in a kettle that everyone. "Go out, cut the limbs off, threw them in the water, and lighted a fire beneath, just as he had seen St. Peter do. The water began to boil. The flesh fell off, and then he took the bones out and laid them on the table. But he did not know the order in which to lay them, and placed them all wrong and in confusion. Then he stood before them and said, "In the name of the most holy Trinity, dead maiden, I bid thee arise." And he said this thrice, but the bones did not stir. So he said it thrice more, but also in vain. "Confounded girl that you are, get up," cried he. "Get up, or it shall be worse for you." When he had said that, Saint Peter suddenly appeared in his former shape as a discharged soldier. He entered by the window and said, "Godless man, what art thou doing? How can the dead maiden arise when thou hast thrown about her bones in such confusion? Dear brother, I have done everything to the best of my ability," he answered. "This once I will help thee out of thy difficulty. But one thing I tell thee, and that is that if ever thou undertakest anything of the kind again, it will be the worse for thee, and also that thou must neither demand nor accept the smallest thing from the king. For this, thereupon St. Peter laid the bones in their right order, said to the maiden 3 times, "In the name of the most holy Trinity, dead maiden, arise." And the king's daughter arose, healthy and beautiful as before. Then St. Peter went away again by the window, and Brother Lustig was rejoiced to find that all had passed off so well, but was very much vexed to think that after all he was not to take anything for it. "I should just like to know," thought he, "what fancy that fellow has got in his head for what he gives. With one hand he takes away with the other. There is no sense whatever in it." Then the king offered Brother Lustig whatsoever he wished to have, but he did not dare to take anything. However, by hints and cunning, he contrived to make the king order his knapsack to be filled with gold for him, and with that he departed. When he got out, St. Peter was standing by the door and said, Just look, what a man thou art. Did I not forbid thee to take anything? And there thou hast thy knapsack full of gold. How can I help that? Answered Brother Lustig. If people will put it in for me. Well, I tell thee this, that if ever thou settest about anything of this kind again, thou shalt suffer for it. Brother, have no fear. Now I have money. Why should I trouble myself with washing bones? Faith, said St. Peter, the gold will last a long time, in order that after this thou mayest never tread in forbidden paths. I will bestow on thy knapsack this property, namely, that whatsoever thou wishest to have inside it shall be there. Farewell, thou wilt now never see me more. Goodbye, said Brother Lustig, and thought to himself, I am very glad that thou hast taken thyself off, thou strange fellow. I shall certainly not follow thee. But of the magical power which had been bestowed on his knapsack, he thought no more. Brother Lustig traveled about with his money, and squandered and wasted what he had as before. When at last he had no more than 4 kreuzers, he passed by an inn and thought, the money must go, and ordered 3 kreuzers worth of wine and 1 kreuzer's worth of bread for himself. As he was sitting there, drinking, the smell of roast goose made its way to his nose. Brother Lustig looked about and peeped, and saw that the host had 2 geese standing in the oven. Then he remembered that his comrade had said that whatsoever he wished to have in his knapsack should be there. So he said, Oh ho, I must try that with the geese. So he went out, and when he was outside the door, he said, I wish those 2 roasted geese out of the oven and in my knapsack. And when he had said that, he unbuckled it and looked in, and there they were inside it. Ah, that's right, said he. Now I am a made man, and went away to a meadow and took out the roast meat. When he was in the midst of his meal, 2 journeymen came up and looked at the second goose, which was not yet touched with hungry eyes. Brother Lustig thought to himself, 1 is enough for me, and called the 2 men up and said, Take the goose and eat it to my health. They thanked him and went with it to the inn, ordered themselves a half bottle of wine, and a loaf, took out the goose which had been given them, and began to eat. The hostess saw them, and said to her husband, Those 2 are eating a goose. Just look and see if it is not one of ours out of the oven. The landlord ran thither, and behold, the oven was empty. What? Cried he. You thievish crew! You want to eat goose as cheap as that? Pay for it this moment, or I will wash you well with green hazel sap. The 2 said, We are no thieves. A discharged soldier gave us the goose outside there in the meadow. You shall not throw dust in my eyes. That way the soldier was here, but he went out by the door like an honest fellow. I looked after him myself. You are the thieves, and shall pay. But as they could not pay, he took a stick and cudgeled them out of the house. Brother Lustig went his way and came to a place where there was a magnificent castle, and not far from it, a wretched inn. He went to the inn and asked for a night's lodging, but the landlord turned him away and said, "There is no more room here. The house is full of noble guests." It surprises me that they should come to you and not go to that splendid castle, said Brother Lustig. "Ah, indeed," replied the host. "But it is no slight matter to sleep there for a night. No one who has tried it so far has ever come out of it alive." "If others have tried it," said Brother Lustig, "I will try it too." "Leave it alone," said the host. "It will cost you your neck." "It won't kill me at once," said Brother Lustig. "Just give me the key and some good food and wine." So the host gave him the key and food and wine. And with this, Brother Lustig went into the castle, enjoyed his supper, and at length, as he was sleepy, he lay down on the ground, for there was no bed. He soon fell asleep, but during the night was disturbed by a great noise. And when he awoke, he saw 9 ugly devils in the room, who had made a circle and were dancing around him. Brother Lustig said, "Well, dance as long as you like, but none of you must come too close." But the devils pressed continually nearer to him and almost stepped on his face with their hideous feet. "Stop, you devil's ghosts," said he. But they behaved still worse. Then Brother Lustig grew angry and cried, "Hola, but I will soon make it quiet," and got the leg of a chair and struck out into the midst of them with it. But 9 devils against 1 soldier were still too many. And when he struck those in front of him, the others seized him behind by the hair and tore it unmercifully. "Devil's crew," cried he, "it is getting too bad. But wait, into my knapsack, all 9 of you." In an instant they were in it, and then he buckled it up and threw it into a corner. After this, all was suddenly quiet, and Brother Lustig lay down again and slept till it was bright day. Then came the innkeeper and the nobleman, to whom the castle belonged, to see how he had fared. But when they perceived that he was merry and well, they were astonished, and asked, "Have the spirits done you no harm then?" "The reason why they have not," answered Brother Lustig, "is because I have got the whole 9 of them in my knapsack. You may once more inhabit your castle quite tranquilly. None of them will ever haunt it again." The nobleman thanked him made him rich presents, and begged him to remain in his service, and he would provide for him as long as he lived. "No," replied Brother Lustig. "I am used to wandering about. I will travel farther." Then he went away and entered into a smithy, laid the knapsack which contained the 9 devils on the anvil, and asked the smith and his apprentices to strike it. So they smote with their great hammers, with all their strength, and the devils uttered howls, which were quite pitiable. When he opened the knapsack, after this, 8 of them were dead, but one which had been lying in a fold of it was still alive, slipped out, and went back again to hell. Thereupon Brother Lustig traveled a long time about the world, and those who know them can tell many a story about him. But at last he grew old and thought of his end, so he went to a hermit who was known to be a pious man, and said to him, "I am tired of wandering about, and want now to behave in such a manner that I shall enter into the kingdom of heaven." The hermit replied, "There are 2 roads. One is broad and pleasant, and leads to hell. The other is narrow and rough, and leads to heaven." "I should be a fool," thought Brother Lustig, "if I were to take the narrow, rough road." So he set out and took the broad and pleasant road, and at length came to a great black door, which was the door of hell. Brother Lustig knocked, and the doorkeeper peeped out to see who was there. But when he saw Brother Lustig, he was terrified, for he was the very same 9th devil who had been shut up in the knapsack and had escaped from it with a black eye. So he pushed the bolt in again as quickly as he could, ran to the devil's lieutenant, and said, "There is a fellow outside with a knapsack who wants to come in, but as you value your lives, don't allow him to enter, or he will wish the whole of hell into his knapsack. He once gave me a frightful hammering when I was inside it." So they called out to Brother Lustig that he was to go away again, for he should not get in there. "If they won't have me here," thought he, "I will see if I can find a place for myself in heaven, for I must be somewhere." So he turned about and went onwards until he came to the door of heaven, where he knocked. Saint Peter was sitting hard by as doorkeeper. Brother Lustig recognized him at once and thought, "Here I find an old friend. I shall get on better." But Saint Peter said, "I really believe that thou wantest to come into heaven. Let me in, brother. I must get in somewhere. If they would have taken me into hell, I should not have come here." "No," said Saint Peter, "thou shalt not enter." Then if thou wilt not let me in, take thy knapsack back, for I will have nothing at all from thee. Give it here then, said St. Peter. Then Brother Lustig gave him the knapsack into heaven, through the bars, and St. Peter took it and hung it beside his seat. Then said Brother Lustig, "And now I wish myself inside my knapsack." And in a second he was in it and in heaven, and St. Peter was forced to let him stay there. All kinds of fur allerleirauw. There was once, on a time, a king who had a wife with golden hair, and she was so beautiful that her equal was not to be found on earth. It came to pass that she lay ill, and as she felt that she must soon die, she called the king and said, "If thou wishest to marry again after my death, take no one who is not quite as beautiful as I am, and who has not just such golden hair as I have. This thou must promise me." And after the king had promised her this, she closed her eyes and died. For a long time the king could not be comforted, and had no thought of taking another wife. At length his counselors said, "There is no help for it. The king must marry again, that we may have a queen." And now messengers were sent about far and wide to seek a bride who equaled the late queen in beauty. In the whole world, however, none was to be found, and even if one had been found, still there would have been no one who had such golden hair. So the messengers came home as they went. Now, the king had a daughter who was just as beautiful as her dead mother, and had the same golden hair. When she was grown up, the king looked at her one day and saw that in every respect she was like his late wife, and suddenly felt a violent love for her. Then he spake to his counselors, "I will marry my daughter, for she is the counterpart of my late wife. Otherwise I can find no bride who resembles her." When the counselors heard that, they were shocked, and said, "God has forbidden a father to marry his daughter. No good can come from such a crime, and the kingdom will be involved in the ruin." The daughter was still more shocked when she became aware of her father's resolution, but hoped to turn him from his design. Then she said to him, "Before I fulfill your wish, I must have 3 dresses, one as golden as the sun, one as silvery as the moon, and one as bright as the stars. Besides this, I wish for a mantle of 1,000 different kinds of fur and hair joined together, and one of every kind of animal in your kingdom must give a piece of his skin for it." But she thought, "To get that will be quite impossible, and thus I shall divert my father from his wicked intentions." The king, however, did not give it up, and the cleverest maidens in his kingdom had to weave the 3 dresses one as golden as the sun, one as silvery as the moon, and one as bright as the stars. And his huntsmen had to catch one of every kind of animal in the whole of his kingdom, and take from it a piece of its skin, and out of these was made a mantle of 1,000 different kinds of fur. At length, when all was ready, the king caused the mantle to be brought, spread it out before her, and said, "The wedding shall be tomorrow." When therefore the king's daughter saw that there was no longer any hope of turning her father's heart, she resolved to run away from him. In the night, whilst every one was asleep, she got up and took 3 different things from her treasures: a golden ring, a golden spinning wheel, and a golden reel. The 3 dresses of the sun, moon, and stars she put into a nutshell, put on her mantle of all kinds of fur, and blackened her face and hands with soot. Then she commended herself to God, and went away, and walked the whole night until she reached a great forest. And as she was tired, she got into a hollow tree and fell asleep. The sun rose, and she slept on, and she was still sleeping when it was full day. Then it so happened that the king to whom this forest belonged was hunting in it. When his daughters came to the tree, they sniffed and ran barking round about it. The king said to the huntsman, "Just see what kind of wild beast has hidden itself in there." The huntsman obeyed his order, and when they came back, they said, "A wondrous beast is lying in the hollow tree. We have never before seen one like it. Its skin is fur of 1,000 different kinds, but it is lying asleep." Said the king, "See if you can catch it alive, and then fasten it to the carriage, and we will take it with us." When the huntsman laid hold of the maiden, she awoke full of terror, and cried to them, "I am a poor child, deserted by father and mother. Have pity on me, and take me with you." Then said they, "Allerleiro, thou wilt be useful in the kitchen. Come with us, and thou canst sweep up the ashes." So they put her in the carriage, and took her home to the royal palace. There they pointed out to her a closet under the stairs where no daylight entered, and said, "Hairy animal, there canst thou live and sleep." Then she was sent into the kitchen, and there she carried wood and water, swept the hearth, plucked the fowls, picked the vegetables, raked the ashes, and did all the dirty work. Allerleirauh lived there for a long time in great wretchedness. Alas, fair princess, what is to become of thee? Now it happened, however, that one day a feast was held in the palace, and she said to the cook, "May I go upstairs for a while and look on? I will place myself outside the door." The cook answered, "Yes, go, but you must be back here in half an hour to sweep the hearth." Then she took her oil lamp, went into her den, put off her fur dress, and washed the soot off her face and hands, so that her full beauty once more came to light. And she opened the nut and took out her dress, which shone like the sun. And when she had done that, she went up to the festival, and everyone made way for her, for no one knew her, and thought no otherwise than that she was a king's daughter. The king came to meet her, gave his hand to her, and danced with her, and thought in his heart, "My eyes have never yet seen anyone so beautiful." When the dance was over, she curtsied, and when the king looked round again, she had vanished, and none knew whither. The guards who stood outside the palace were called and questioned, but no one had seen her. She had, however, run into her little den, had quickly taken off her dress, made her face and hands black again, put on the fur mantle, and again was Allerleirauh. And now, when she went into the kitchen and was about to get to her work and sweep up the ashes, the cook said, "Leave that alone till morning, and make me the soup for the king. I too will go upstairs a while and take a look, but let no hairs fall in, or in future thou shalt have nothing to eat." So the cook went away, and Allerleirauh made the soup for the king, and made bread soup, and the best she could. And when it was ready, she fetched her golden ring from her little den, and put it in the bowl in which the soup was served. When the dancing was over, the king had his soup brought, and ate it, and he liked it so much that it seemed to him he had never tasted better. But when he came to the bottom of the bowl, he saw a golden ring lying, and could not conceive how it could have got there. Then he ordered the cook to appear before him. The cook was terrified when he heard the order, and said to Allerleirauh, "Thou hast certainly let a hair fall into the soup, and if thou hast, thou shalt be beaten for it." When he came before the king, the latter asked who had made the soup. The cook replied, "I made it." But the king said, "That is not true, for it was much better than usual, and cooked differently." He answered, "I must acknowledge that I did not make it. It was made by the rough animal." The king said, "Go and bid it come up here." When Allerleirauh came, the king said, "Who art thou?" "I am a poor girl who no longer has any father or mother." He asked further, "Of what use art thou in my palace?" She answered, "I am good for nothing but to have boots thrown at my head." So he continued, "Where didst thou get the ring which was in the soup?" She answered, "I know nothing about the ring." So the king could learn nothing and had to send her away again. After a while, there was another festival, and then, as before, Allerleirauh begged the cook for leave to go and look on. He answered, "Yes, but come back again in half an hour and make the king the bread soup which he so much likes." Then she ran into her den, washed herself quickly, and took out of the nut the dress which was as silvery as the moon, and put it on. Then she went up, and was like a princess, and the king stepped forward to meet her, and rejoiced to see her once more. And as the dance was just beginning, they danced it together. But when it was ended, she again disappeared so quickly that the king could not observe where she went. She, however, sprang into her den and once more made herself a hairy animal and went into the kitchen to prepare the bread soup. When the cook had gone upstairs, she fetched the little golden spinning wheel and put it in the bowl so that the soup covered it. Then it was taken to the king, who ate it and liked it as much as before, and had the cook brought, who this time likewise was forced to confess that Allerleirauh had prepared the soup. Allerleirauh again came before the king, but she answered that she was good for nothing else but to have boots thrown at her head, and that she knew nothing at all about the little golden spinning wheel. When, for the third time, the king held a festival, all happened just as it had done before. The cook said, "Faith, rough skin, thou art a witch, and always puttest something in the soup, which makes it so good that the king likes it better than that which I cook." But as she begged so hard, he let her go up at the appointed time. And now she put on the dress which shone like the stars, and thus entered the hall. Again the king danced with the beautiful maiden, and thought that she never yet had been so beautiful. And whilst she was dancing, he contrived, without her noticing it, to slip a golden ring on her finger, and he had given orders that the dance should last a very long time. When it was ended, he wanted to hold her fast by her hands, but she tore herself loose and sprang away so quickly through the crowd that she vanished from his sight. She ran as fast as she could into her den beneath the stairs, but as she had been too long and had stayed more than half an hour, she could not take off her pretty dress, but only threw over it her fur mantle. And in her haste, she did not make herself quite black, but one finger remained white. Then Allerleirauh ran into the kitchen and cooked the bread soup for the king, and as the cook was away, put her golden reel into it. When the king found the reel at the bottom of it, he caused Allerleirauh to be summoned. And then he espied the white finger and saw the ring which he had put on it during the dance. Then he grasped her by the hand and held her fast, and when she wanted to release herself and run away, her mantle of fur opened a little, and the star dress shone forth. The king clutched the mantle and tore it off. Then her golden hair shone forth, and she stood there in full splendor and could no longer hide herself. And when she had washed the soot and ashes from her face, she was more beautiful than anyone who had ever been seen on earth. But the king said, "Thou art my dear bride, and we will never more part from each other." Thereupon the marriage was solemnized, and they lived happily until their death. Hans in luck. Hans had served his master for 7 years, so he said to him, "Master, my time is up. Now I should be glad to go back home to my mother. Give me my wages." The master answered, "You have served me faithfully and honestly. As the service was, so shall the reward be." And he gave Hans a piece of gold as big as his head. Hans pulled his handkerchief out of his pocket, wrapped up the lump in it, put it on his shoulder, and set out on the way home. As he went on, always putting one foot before the other, he saw a horseman trotting quickly and merrily by on a lively horse. "Ah," said Hans, quite loud, "what a fine thing it is to ride. There you sit, as on a chair. You stumble over no stones, you save your shoes and get on. You don't know how." The rider who had heard him stopped and called out, "Hallo, Hans, why do you go on foot then?" "I must," answered he, "for I have this lump to carry home. It is true that it is gold, but I cannot hold my head straight for it, and it hurts my shoulder." "I will tell you what," said the rider, "we will exchange. I will give you my horse, and you can give me your lump." "With all my heart," said Hans, "but I can tell you, you will have to crawl along with it." The rider got down, took the gold, and helped Hans up, then gave him the bridle tight in his hands, and said, "If you want to go at a really good pace, you must click your tongue and call out, 'Joop, joop.'" Hans was heartily delighted as he sat upon the horse and rode away so bold and free. After a little while, he thought that it ought to go faster, and he began to click with his tongue and call out, "Joop, joop." And so the horse put himself into a sharp trot, and before Hans knew where he was thrown off and lying in a ditch which separated the field from the highway. The horse would have gone off too if it had not been stopped by a countryman who was coming along the road and driving a cow before him. Hans got his limbs together and stood up on his legs again. But he was vexed, and said to the countryman, "It is a poor joke, this riding, especially when one gets hold of a mare like this that kicks and throws one off so that one has a chance of breaking one's neck. Never again will I mount it. Now I like your cow, for one can walk quietly behind her and have over and above one's milk, butter, and cheese every day without fail. What would I not give to have such a cow?" "Well," said the countryman, "if it would give you so much pleasure, I do not mind giving the cow for the horse." Hans agreed with the greatest delight. The countryman jumped upon the horse and rode quickly away. Hans drove his cow quietly before him and thought over his Eissuti bargain. "If only I have a morsel of bread, and that can hardly fail me. I can eat butter and cheese with it as often as I like. If I am thirsty, I can milk my cow and drink the milk. Good heart, what more can I want?" When he came to an inn, he made a halt, and in his great content ate up what he had with him, his dinner and supper, and all he had, and with his last few farthings had half a glass of beer. Then he drove his cow onwards along the road to his mother's village. As it drew nearer, midday, the heat was more oppressive, and Hans found himself upon a moor which it took about an hour to cross. He felt it very hot, and his tongue clave to the roof of his mouth with thirst. "I can find a cure for this," thought Hans. "I will milk the cow now and refresh myself with the milk." He tied her to a withered tree, and as he had no pail, he put his leather cap underneath. But try as he would, not a drop of milk came, and as he set himself to work in a clumsy way, the impatient beast at last gave him such a blow on his head with its hind foot that he fell on the ground, and for a long time could not think where he was. By good fortune, a butcher just then came along the road with a wheelbarrow in which lay a young pig. "What sort of a trick is this?" cried he, and helped the good Hans up. Hans told him what had happened. The butcher gave him his flask and said, "Take a drink and refresh yourself. The cow will certainly give no milk. It is an old beast. At the best, it is only fit for the plow or for the butcher." "Well, well," said Hans, as he stroked his hair down on his head. "Who would have thought it? Certainly, it is a fine thing when one can kill a beast like that at home. What meat one has! But I do not care much for beef. It is not juicy enough for me. A young pig like that now is the thing to have. It tastes quite different. And then there are the sausages. Hark, Ye Hans, said the butcher, out of love for you, I will exchange and will let you have the pig for the cow. Heaven repay you for your kindness, said Hans, as he gave up the cow, whilst the pig was unbound from the barrow, and the cord by which it was tied was put in his hand. Hans went on, and thought to himself how everything was going just as he wished. If he did meet with any vexation, it was immediately set right. Presently, there joined him a lad, who was carrying a fine white goose under his arm. They said good morning to each other, and Hans began to tell of his good luck, and how he had always made such good bargains. The boy told him that he was taking the goose to a christening feast. Just lift her, added he, and laid hold of her by the wings. How heavy she is! She has been fattened up for the last 8 weeks. Whoever has a bit of her, when she is roasted, will have to wipe the fat from both sides of his mouth. Yes, said Hans, as he weighed her in one hand. She is a good weight, but my pig is no bad one. Meanwhile, the lad looked suspiciously from one side to the other, and shook his head. Look here, he said at length. It may not be all right with your pig. In the village through which I passed, the mayor himself had just had one stolen out of its sty. I fear that you have got hold of it there. They have sent out some people, and it would be a bad business if they caught you with the pig. At the very least, you would be shut up in the dark hole. The good Hans was terrified. Goodness, he said, help me out of this fix. You know more about this place than I do. Take my pig and leave me your goose. I shall risk something at that game, answered the lad, but I will not be the cause of your getting into trouble. So he took the cord in his hand and drove away the pig quickly along a bypath. The good Hans, free from care, went homewards with the goose under his arm. When I think over it properly, said he to himself, I have even gained by the exchange. First, there is the good roast meat, then the quantity of fat which will drip from it, and which will give me dripping for my bread for 1/4 of a year, and lastly, the beautiful white feathers. I will have my pillow stuffed with them, and then indeed I shall go to sleep without rocking. How glad my mother will be. As he was going through the last village, there stood a scissors grinder with his barrow. As his wheel whirred, he sang, I sharpen scissors and quickly grind. My coat blows out in the wind behind. Hans stood still and looked at him. At last he spoke to him and said, All's well with you, as you are so merry with your grinding. Yes, answered the scissors grinder. The trade has a golden foundation. A real grinder is a man who, as often as he puts his hand into his pocket, finds gold in it. But where did you buy that fine goose? I did not buy it, but exchanged my pig for it. And the pig, that I got for a cow. And the cow, I took that instead of a horse. And the horse, for that I gave a lump of gold as big as my head. And the gold, well, that was my wages for 7 years' service. You have known how to look after yourself each time, said the grinder. If you can only get on so far as to hear the money jingle in your pocket whenever you stand up, you will have made your fortune. How shall I manage that? Said Hans. You must be a grinder as I am. Nothing particular is wanted for it, but a grindstone. The rest finds itself. I have one here. It is certainly a little worn, but you need not give me anything for it, but your goose. Will you do it? How can you ask? Answered Hans. I shall be the luckiest fellow on earth. If I have money, whenever I put my hand in my pocket, what need I trouble about any longer? And he handed him the goose, and received the grindstone in exchange. Now, said the grinder, as he took up an ordinary heavy stone that lay by him, here is a strong stone for you into the bargain. You can hammer well upon it and straighten your old nails. Take it with you and keep it carefully. Hans loaded himself with the stones and went on with a contented heart. His eyes shone with joy. I must have been born with a caul, he cried. Everything I want happens to me, just as if I were a Sunday child. Meanwhile, as he had been on his legs since daybreak, he began to feel tired. Hunger also tormented him, for in his joy at the bargain, by which he got the cow, he had eaten up all his store of food at once. At last, he could only go on with great trouble, and was forced to stop every minute. The stones, too, weighed him down dreadfully. Then he could not help thinking how nice it would be if he had not to carry them just then. He crept like a snail to a well in a field, and there he thought that he would rest and refresh himself with a cool draught of water. But in order that he might not injure the stones, in sitting down, he laid them carefully by his side on the edge of the well. Then he sat down on it and was to stoop and drink, when he made a slip, pushed against the stones, and both of them fell into the water. When Hans saw them, with his own eyes sinking to the bottom, he jumped for joy, and then knelt down, and with tears in his eyes, thanked God for having shown him this favor also, and delivered him in so good a way, and without his having any need to reproach himself from those heavy stones, which had been the only things that troubled him. There is no man under the sun so fortunate as I, he cried out, with a light heart, and free from every burden, he now ran on until he was with his mother at home. 6 soldiers of fortune. There was once a man who was a jack of all trades. He had served in the war and had been brave and bold, but at the end of it, he was sent about his business with 3 farthings and his discharge. "I am not going to stand this," said he. "Wait till I find the right man to help me, and the king shall give me all the treasures of his kingdom before he has done with me." Then, full of wrath, he went into the forest, and he saw one standing there by 6 trees, which he had rooted up as if they had been stalks of corn. And he said to him, "Will you be my man and come along with me?" "All right," answered he. "I must just take this bit of wood home to my father and mother." And taking one of the trees, he bound it round the other 5, and putting the faggot on his shoulder, he carried it off. Then, soon coming back, he went along with his leader, who said, "2 such as we can stand against the whole world." And when they had gone on a little while, they came to a huntsman, who was kneeling on one knee and taking careful aim with his rifle. "Huntsman," said the leader, "what are you aiming at?" 2 miles from here," answered he. "There sits a fly on the bough of an oak tree. I mean to put a bullet into its left eye." "Oh, come along with me," said the leader. "3 of us together can stand against the world." The huntsman was quite willing to go with him, and so they went on till they came to 7 windmills, whose sails were going round briskly, and yet there was no wind blowing from any quarter, and not a leaf stirred. "Well," said the leader, "I cannot think what ails the windmills turning without wind." And he went on with his followers about 2 miles farther, and then they came to a man sitting up in a tree, holding one nostril and blowing with the other. "Now then," said the leader, "what are you doing up there?" 2 miles from here," answered he, "there are 7 windmills. I am blowing, and they are going round." "Oh, go with me," cried the leader. 4 of us together can stand against the world." So the blower got down and went with them, and after a time they came to a man standing on one leg, and the other had been taken off and was lying near him. "You seem to have got a handy way of resting yourself," said the leader to the man. "I am a runner," answered he, "and in order to keep myself from going too fast, I have taken off a leg, for when I run with both, I go faster than a bird can fly." "Oh, go with me," cried the leader. 5 of us together may well stand against the world." So he went with them all together, and it was not long before they met a man with a little hat on, and he wore it just over one ear. "Manners, manners," said the leader. "With your hat like that, you look like a jack-fool." "I dare not put it straight," answered the other. "If I did, there would be such a terrible frost that the very birds would be frozen and fall dead from the sky to the ground." "Oh, come with me," said the leader. "We 6 together may well stand against the whole world." So the 6 went on until they came to a town where the king had caused it to be made known that whoever would run a race with his daughter and win it might become her husband, but that whoever lost must lose his head into the bargain. And the leader came forward and said one of his men should run for him. "Then," said the king, "his life too must be put in pledge, and if he fails, his head and yours too must fall." And when this was quite settled and agreed upon, the leader called the runner and strapped his second leg on to him. "Now, look out," said he, "and take care that we win." It had been agreed that the one who should bring water first from a far distant brook should be accounted winner. Now the king's daughter and the runner each took a pitcher, and they started both at the same time. But in one moment, when the king's daughter had gone but a very little way, the runner was out of sight, for his running was as if the wind rushed by. In a short time, he reached the brook, filled his pitcher full of water, and turned back again. About halfway home, however, he was overcome with weariness, and setting down his pitcher, he lay down on the ground to sleep. But in order to awaken soon again, by not lying too soft, he had taken a horse's skull, which lay near, and placed it under his head for a pillow. In the meanwhile, the king's daughter, who really was a good runner, good enough to beat an ordinary man, had reached the brook and filled her pitcher, and was hastening with it back again when she saw the runner lying asleep. "The day is mine," said she with much joy, and she emptied his pitcher and hastened on, and now all had been lost but for the huntsman, who was standing on the castle wall, and with his keen eyes saw all that happened. "We must not be outdone by the king's daughter," said he, and he loaded his rifle and took so good an aim that he shot the horse's skull from under the runner's head without doing him any harm. And the runner awoke and jumped up and saw his pitcher standing empty, and the king's daughter far on her way home. But not losing courage, he ran swiftly to the brook, filled it again with water, and for all that, he got home 10 minutes before the king's daughter. "Look you," said he, "this is the first time I have really stretched my legs. Before it was not worth the name of running." The king was vexed, and his daughter yet more so, that she should be beaten by a discharged common soldier. And they took counsel together how they might rid themselves of him and of his companions at the same time. "I have a plan," said the king. "Do not fear, but that we shall be quit of them forever." Then he went out to the men, and bade them to feast, and be merry, and eat, and drink. And he led them into a room which had a floor of iron, and the doors were iron. The windows had iron frames and bolts. In the room was a table set out with costly food. "Now, go in there and make yourselves comfortable," said the king. And when they had gone in, he had the door locked and bolted. Then he called the cook and told him to make a big fire underneath the room, so that the iron floor of it should be red hot. And the cook did so, and the 6 men began to feel the room growing very warm by reason, as they thought at first of the good dinner. But as the heat grew greater and greater, and they found the doors and windows fastened, they began to think it was an evil plan of the king's to suffocate them. "He shall not succeed, however," said the man with the little hat. "I will bring on a frost that shall make the fire feel ashamed of itself and creep out of the way." So he set his hat straight on his head, and immediately there came such a frost that all the heat passed away, and the food froze in the dishes. After an hour or 2 had passed, and the king thought they must have all perished in the heat, he caused the door to be opened, and went himself to see how they fared. And when the door flew back there, they were all 6 quite safe and sound. And they said they were quite ready to come out, so that they might warm themselves, for the great cold of that room had caused the food to freeze in the dishes. Full of wrath, the king went to the cook and scolded him, and asked why he had not done as he was ordered. "It is hot enough there, you may see for yourself," answered the cook. And the king looked and saw an immense fire burning underneath the room of iron. And he began to think that the 6 men were not to be got rid of in that way. And he thought of a new plan by which it might be managed. So he sent for the leader and said to him, "If you will give up your right to my daughter and take gold instead, you may have as much as you like." "Certainly, my lord king," answered the man. "Let me have as much gold as my servant can carry, and I give up all claim to your daughter." And the king agreed that he should come again in a fortnight to fetch the gold. The man then called together all the tailors in the kingdom and set them to work to make a sack, and it took them a fortnight. And when it was ready, the strong man who had been found rooting up trees took it on his shoulder and went to the king. "Who is this immense fellow carrying on his shoulder a bundle of stuff as big as a house?" cried the king, terrified to think how much gold he would carry off. And a ton of gold was dragged in by 16 strong men, but he put it all into the sack with one hand, saying, "Why don't you bring some more? This hardly covers the bottom." So the king bade them fetch by degrees the whole of his treasure, and even then the sack was not half full. "Bring more," but cried the man. "These few scraps go no way at all." Then at last 7,000 wagons laden with gold collected through the whole kingdom were driven up, and he threw them in his sack, oxen and all. "I will not look too closely," said he, "but take what one can get so long as the sack is full." And when all was put in, there was still plenty of room. "I must make an end of this," he said. "If it is not full, it is so much the easier to tie up." And he hoisted it on his back and went off with his comrades. When the king saw all the wealth of his realm carried off by a single man, he was full of wrath, and he bade his cavalry mount and follow after the 6 men and take the sack away from the strong man. 2 regiments were soon up to them, and called them to consider themselves prisoners, and to deliver up the sack, or be cut in pieces. "Prisoners say you," said the man who could blow, "suppose you first have a little dance together in the air." And holding one nostril and blowing through the other, he sent the regiments flying head over heels over the hills and far away. But a sergeant, who had 9 wounds and was a brave fellow, begged not to be put to so much shame, and the blower let him down easily, so that he came to no harm. And he bade him go to the king and tell him that whatever regiments he liked to send, more should be blown away just the same. And the king, when he got the message, said, "Let the fellows be. They have some right on their side." So the 6 comrades carried home their treasure, divided it among them, and lived contented till they died. Jorinda and Joringel. There once stood in the heart of a vast and ancient forest a castle of stone, so weathered and silent that travelers spoke of it only in whispers. Its high walls were half hidden by ivy and shadow, and its windows stared out like empty eyes. In this castle dwelt an old woman feared by all who knew of her. She was no ordinary woman, but a witch who lived alone apart from mankind, wrapped in secrets and in sorcery. By day, she slipped out of her true form and became something else, sometimes a prowling black cat whose eyes gleamed like coals, sometimes a screech owl whose cry curdled the blood. Yet when evening fell and the sun dipped behind the trees, she took again the shape of a bent and wrinkled crone. Her powers were dreadful. With murmured words, she could draw wild beasts and Biral from the forest, luring them to her like moths to a flame. Then she would kill them, boiling some roasting others until her grim halls reeked of smoke and flesh. But her most cruel enchantment was laid upon men. Whoever strayed within 100 paces of her castle was caught fast as if bound in chains. They could not stir a step forward or back until she willed it. And if it happened to be a maiden innocent and young, the witch's cruelty was sharper still. The maiden was struck silent, changed in an instant into a bird with trembling wings. Into a wicker cage, the witch thrust her, locking her away in a chamber filled with sorrowful song. It was said that 7,000 cages, each holding a rare bird, lined the stone rooms of that castle. 7,000 stolen voices imprisoned by wickedness. Now, there lived in a nearby village a maiden named Jorinda, fairer and gentler than all the rest. Her eyes were bright as spring water, her hair soft as dusk, and her heart pure as dawn. With her was a young man named Joringel, strong and handsome, who had pledged his life to her. They had promised to marry, though the days of their betrothal had not yet run their course. Their joy lay not in gold or feasts, but in walking side by side, speaking softly, dreaming of the days to come. One evening, when the light was golden and the turtle doves were murmuring their plaintive songs among the birch trees, the lovers wandered into the forest. "Be careful, my Jorinda Joringel," whispered, casting anxious glances among the shadows. "Do not go too near the castle, for evil dwells within its stones. Yet love makes the heart heedless, and sorrow pressed upon them that night, as if a cloud had settled over their joy. Jorinda sat in a shaft of sunlight, her eyes brimming with tears, and Joringel too felt a weight upon his spirit. They were sorrowful, as though parted already by death. As they wandered, they lost their way. The sun dipped lower, half hidden behind the mountain. Jorangel's gaze fell through the thicket, and there too, near for comfort, rose the grim walls of the castle. Fear seized him. His limbs trembled. At that moment, Jorinda lifted her voice in a song, "My little bird with the necklace. Red sings, sorrow, sorrow, sorrow. He sings that the dove must soon be dead. Sings sorrow, soar jug, jug, jug." Her voice faltered. Joringel turned to her, but she was gone. In her place, a nightingale fluttered, crying "Joy-jug-ja." Around her circled a screech owl with eyes like burning embers, who thrice wheeled about and thrice shrieked, "To-hoo, to-hoo, to-hoo." Joringel was stricken as if turned to stone. He could not speak, nor cry, nor move a finger. Helpless he stood while the sun sank and shadows deepened. The owl vanished into the thicket, and out from it crept the witch herself, bent and bony, her skin yellow as old parchment, her hooked nose nearly meeting her chin, her red eyes glowing like coals in the dark. Muttering, she seized the nightingale in her claw-like hand and carried it away. Joringel still stood, rooted to the spot, unable to stir. At last, the witch returned, her voice hollow as a grave when she spoke, "Hail, Zachiel. If the moon shines on the cage, then set him loose." And with those words, the spell upon Joringel broke. Falling to his knees, he begged for his beloved. "Give me back Jorinda. Give her back." But the old woman only cackled, declaring he would never see her again, and vanished into the gloom. Joringel wept bitterly, his cries echoing uselessly through the forest. At length, broken in spirit, he left the place and wandered until he came to a far village. There he kept sheep and lived alone, but his heart was never at rest. Often he stole to the edges of the cursed forest, circling the castle, yet never daring too near. His longing for Jorinda was like a wound that would not heal. One night, as he lay upon his pallet, a dream came to him. In the dream, he saw a flower, blood red as a drop of heart's blood, and in its heart shone a pearl larger and lovelier than any jewel on earth. With this flower, he went to the castle, and everything he touched with it was freed from enchantment. By this means, he dreamed he could recover Jorinda. When morning broke, Joringel rose filled with hope. He searched the hills and valleys, the meadows and the mountain paths for this wondrous flower. He sought for 9 long days, and on the 9th, just at dawn, he found it blooming in the grass. Its petals glowed crimson, and in the center lay a dewdrop bright as a pearl. Clutching it, he hastened to the castle. This time, though he crossed within 100 paces, no spell bound him. His heart leapt with joy. He touched the great door with the flower, and it swung open of its own accord. Through the courtyard, he walked his ears, straining for the sound of the captive birds. At last, he heard them, 1,000 sorrowful voices, fluttering and crying in their cages. He followed the sound and came to a chamber where the witch was feeding her captives. 7,000 cages lined the walls, each holding a trembling bird. When she beheld Joringel, she flew into a rage, spitting poison and curses. Yet she could not come within 2 paces of him, for the flower's power drove her back. He ignored her fury and searched the cages, but there were hundreds of nightingales. How should he know which was his beloved? Just then, he saw the crone lift a cage and creep toward the door, muttering to herself. Swiftly, Joringel leapt forward, touched the cage with the red flower, and also touched the witch. In that moment, her power crumbled. She could bewitch no one ever again. The cage broke open, and from it stepped Jorinda, no longer a bird, but a maiden, as fair and radiant as before. With tears of joy, she flung her arms around Joringel's neck. And thus, through courage, faith, and love, stronger than sorcery, they were united once more. Gambling Hansel. Once in a time, long past, there lived a man who could not keep his hands away from card and dice. His neighbors knew him by no other name than Gambling Hansel, for from morning until night, and from night until morning, he sought nothing but the rattle of dice and the shuffle of cards. His labor was not with plow or hammer, nor did he sow or reap, but he gambled away his hours, and with them his house, his fields, his clothes, and at last even the very bread on his table. At last matters came to such a pass that his creditors prepared to seize his dwelling. On the eve of that unhappy day, when sorrow already pressed upon his shoulders, 2 travelers knocked at his door. They were none other than the Lord himself and Saint Peter. Though Hansel, blinded by his folly, knew them not. "Give us shelter this night," said the Lord, "though it be little you can spare." Hansel scratched his head and answered, "You may stay within, for I will not cast a traveler out. But a bed I have not, nor meat nor drink, for all is gone." "Let that not trouble you," replied the Lord. "Only grant us a roof, and we will see to the rest." So Saint Peter placed 3 groschen in Hansel's hand, and bade him fetch bread from the baker. Yet on his way to the shop, Hansel passed by a smoky tavern, where his old companions, who had already won away his fortune, called to him with noisy laughter, "Hansel, come inside. Throw the dice once more." "Oh," cried Hansel, "you would take even these 3 groschen, would you not?" But they seized him by the arm, and though he made a weak protest, he entered, and soon the 3 coins jingled upon the table. One throw another, and they were gone, as all else had gone before. Meanwhile, the Lord and Saint Peter waited until patience was worn thin. At last they went forth and met Hansel in the street, raking about in the gutter, as though to search for the lost coins. But the Lord, who sees all things, knew well where the money had vanished. Saint Peter by it, and gave him again 3 groschen, saying sternly, "Go now, and betray us, not a second time." This time Hansel brought back the loaf, though with a sullen face. When the Lord asked if there were wine, Hansel spread his hands. Alas, the casks are empty. Not a drop remains. Go to the cellar, commanded the Lord, for there flows the best of wine. Hansel laughed bitterly, yet went down. And when he turned the tap, behold, the richest wine of ruby color streamed forth. He filled a jug, marveled a little, but asked no questions. That night, the 3 shared bread and wine under Hansel's roof. In the morning, the Lord said, "You have given us shelter. Ask of me 3 favors, and they shall be granted." Hansel did not ask for wisdom, nor for heaven's gate to open wide before him. Instead, he spoke as one possessed. "First, give me a pack of cards with which I shall always win. Second, dice that will never betray me. Third, a tree on which grows every fruit, and from which no man can descend unless I give him leave." The Lord in his mercy granted what was asked, though Saint Peter shook his head in sorrow. With these gifts, Hansel returned to the gaming table. Fortune, bound by heaven's power, could not desert him. In a short while, he had not only regained what was lost, but won half the world besides. Kings and merchants, lords and commoners, all fell before his cursed luck. Saint Peter looked upon the earth and said, "Lord, if this goes on, the whole world will fall to Hansel, and he will set himself above every man. Send death to fetch him." So death came to Hansel, who sat once more at play. Hansel said, "Death, rise and follow me. Wait until the game is ended." Hansel answered coolly, "And in the meantime, climb that tree yonder and fetch us some fruit that we may eat upon the road." Death, unwary, climbed the tree, but when he would come down, he found himself trapped. Hansel laughed and let him hang there, while the world below changed in strange ways. For 7 years, no man died. The sick lingered in their pain. The aged tottered on their crutches, but never fell. Soldiers bled on the battlefield, yet did not perish. The world grew heavy with weary souls who longed for release. At last Saint Peter said, "Lord, it cannot be. The order of life is broken. We must go ourselves." So the Lord came, and he bade Hansel release Death. Hansel, though reluctant, spoke the word, and down climbed Death. At once he seized Hansel and struck him so that his life was ended. When Hansel's soul departed, it strode boldly to the gate of heaven. He knocked. "Who is there?" asked St. Peter. "Gambling Hansel. We will have none of him. He brings strife and noise." "Begone." So Hansel went to purgatory and knocked again. "Who is there?" "Gambling Hansel. There is wailing enough within already. We do not need his games." Away. Thus turned from both places, Hansel sought hell, and there the gate opened. Within sat only Lucifer, and a handful of crooked devils, weary from their work. No sooner had Hansel entered than he drew out his enchanted cards. "Come, friends, let us play." Lucifer, having little else, staked his servants, and Hansel, as always, won. With a band of crooked devils behind him, Hansel marched forth. They tore a hop pole from the ground and leaned it against the wall of heaven. Up they clambered, rattling and shouting, until even the firmament shook. St. Peter trembled and cried, "Lord, we must let him in, else he will bring heaven crashing down." So they admitted him. Yet scarcely had Hansel set foot inside when he spread his cards upon the golden pavement. A roar of gambling rose up. Angels could not sing, prayers were drowned. Peace was shattered. Then St. Peter said once more, "Lord, this cannot be borne." He makes all heaven rebel, and together they seized Hansel and hurled him down. His soul burst apart like shards of glass, and each fragment flew into the hearts of gamblers who live to this very day, restless, greedy, and never content, for gambling Hansel walks still among men, though only in pieces. Frederick and Catherine. Once upon a time, there lived a man named Frederick and a woman named Catherine, who had been joined in marriage and dwelt together as many young couples do, with hopes for a simple life of labor meals and shared company. Frederick was a plain, earnest man, while Catherine, though kind at heart, often let her thoughts wander in ways that led to strange doings. One morning, Frederick spoke. "Wife, I go now to plow the field. When I return, weary with hunger, I would have a roast set before me, and a fresh draught for my thirst." Catherine answered briskly, "Go your way, Frederick, and trust me. You shall have all ready at the hour of your return." So near noon, she fetched down a fat sausage that hung in the chimney, laid it in the frying pan with a good piece of butter, and set it upon the fire. The butter hissed, The sausage sputtered, and Catherine stood by with the pan handle in her hand, musing to herself how clever she was to provide so fine a meal. Yet her thoughts strayed as they often did. It would be wise, said she within, while the sausage cooks, to go into the cellar and draw a jug of beer. Thus, she left the pan safe upon the fire, took a can in her hand, and went below. The beer foamed and ran merrily into the vessel, but while it filled, she thought suddenly, "Good heavens, the dog is not fastened. He may snatch the sausage from the pan." With that, she hastened up the steps. But alas, the Spitz had already seized the sausage and was dragging it proudly over the floor. Catherine flew after it, out through the yard and into the field. Yet the dog was swift and frisked away the sausage, bumping over the furrows. She chased long until weariness overcame her. "What is gone, sighed Catherine at last, and she turned back, walking more slowly, cooling her hot face. But in the cellar, the beer still ran, for she had not closed the tap. The can overflowed, the stream poured upon the floor, and by the time she returned, the whole cask was drained. Catherine wrung her hands. "Dear me, what will Frederick say? How shall I hide the misfortune?" She pondered, and then remembered a sack of fine wheat flour lying in the garret. If I strew the flour over the wet floor, she thought, no one will see the beer, and what is saved in time is saved for need. Up she climbed, dragged down the heavy sack, and poured the whole upon the cellar floor, spilling also what remained of the beer jug. White meal and golden liquid mingled, and Catherine, wiping her brow, declared, "How clean and wholesome it looks now." At midday, Frederick came home. "Wife, what hast thou for me?" "Ah, Freddie," she cried, "a sausage was frying for you. But while I drew the beer, the dog ran off with it. While I chased the dog, the beer ran out, and when I dried the beer with the flour, I overturned the jug. But be easy, the cellar is quite dry again." Frederick shook his head. "Kate, Kate, thou shouldst not have done that, to lose the sausage, let the beer run, and waste all the flour besides." "Indeed," Frederick said, "I knew not that it was wrong. You should have told me so." From that day, Frederick thought, "My wife must be watched, else all will go amiss." Now he had laid by many thalers, which he changed into gold coins. He showed them to Catherine and said, "See, here are yellow counters for games. I will hide them in a pot under the cow's manger. But mind you, do not meddle with them, or it will be ill for you." "Oh no," Frederick said, I will not touch them." But no sooner had he gone than some peddlers came into the village with earthen bowls and pots. Catherine longed for the bright wares, but had no money. "If you care for yellow counters," said she, "I can buy of you yellow counters." "Show them us," said the peddlers. "I may not," she replied. "Go to the stable, dig under the cow's manger, and you shall find them." So the rogues dug and found the gold. They seized it and ran off, leaving their pots behind. Catherine, pleased with her bargain, set all the bowls about the house. Yet, thinking she had more than enough already, she knocked the bottoms out and hung them like ornaments on the fence where they shone in the sun. When Frederick came home and saw the new display, he asked, "What have you done, Catherine?" "I bought these with the counters from under the manger. The peddlers dug them up themselves." Frederick groaned. "Wife, those were not counters, but our purest gold. All our wealth is gone." "Ah, Frederick," said she, "I did not know. You should have warned me." Catherine then proposed they chase the thieves to win back their treasure. Frederick agreed, and they set off, Catherine carrying butter and cheeses for food. But as they went over a hill, she pitied the deep cart ruts in the road. "The poor earth is sorely hurt," she murmured, and in her compassion she smeared the ruts with her butter. Meanwhile, her cheeses rolled from her pocket down the hill. Thinking each had gone to call the other back, she sent more after them, until all were lost. When she rejoined Frederick with only dry bread, he cried, "Kate, you should not have smeared the road with butter, nor sent the cheeses tumbling." "Indeed, you should have told me," said she. Later, Frederick asked if she had locked the house. Catherine had not. She returned, unhinged the lower half of the door, and carried it on her back, thinking thus the house would be safe. Along with it, she bore dried pears and vinegar. Meeting Frederick again, she said cheerfully, "Here is the door. Now you can guard the house yourself." "Oh, wise wife," sighed Frederick. Night overtook them, and they climbed a tree to rest. Below, the thieves lit a fire to divide their loot. Frederick gathered stones to throw, but Catherine pressed. By the weight of the door, began dropping first the pears, then the vinegar, then at last the very door. The thieves, thinking the devil himself was descending, fled in terror, leaving behind all the stolen gold. Thus Frederick and Catherine returned home enriched. Yet Catherine, still determined to be useful, went to cut corn. But instead of reaping, she ate, then slept, and in her drowsy dreaming, cut her very clothes to rags. Half naked, she awoke bewildered, and ran to Frederick's window, crying, "Frederick, is Catherine within?" "Yet," answered he, "she must be at home and asleep." "'Tis well said," she then, "surely I am there already," and off she ran again. So the tale of Frederick and Catherine runs a story of a husband who toils and a wife who means well, yet turns all upside down. And though Frederick often lamented, he bore with her folly, for such was his lot, and such was Catherine. Gossip Wolf and the Fox. The fox and his cousin, in a deep forest, where shadows stretched long, and the moss muffled every step, a she-wolf brought forth a little son. Proud of her offspring, and full of care for his future, she began to think of whom she might ask to stand as godfather. "It must be one of our own kin," said she to herself. "Someone clever, someone shrewd, someone who can guide my boy and teach him how to walk in this hard world." Her thoughts turned to the fox, who was cousin to her in the ways of beasts. "He is cunning, yes," she mused, "but he is also quick of wit and smooth of tongue. Perhaps his cleverness will be of use to my son, for the world does not always reward strength alone." So the she-wolf sought out the fox and said, "Cousin, I have borne a child, and I would have you be his sponsor. After all, you are near of blood to us, and no creature in the forest possesses such understanding and talent as you. You can instruct my little son, guide him, and perhaps one day help him to prosper." The fox bowed his head, and his eyes gleamed, though he made them look humble. "Worthy Mistress Gossip," said he, "I thank you for the honor you are doing me. Be assured that I shall repay it with every kindness. I will not fail you or your child." Then he sat at the feast which the she-wolf prepared, and he ate with gusto, laughing and making merry until the dishes were bare and the jugs stood empty. When the feasting was done, the fox leaned close and said, "Dear mistress, Gossip, it is our duty to see that the child has good food so that he may grow strong and thrive. Now I know a sheepfold not far from here, and within are fat morsels that would nourish him well. Shall we fetch one?" The wolf, who trusted the smooth words of her chosen kinsman, pricked up her ears and wagged her tail. She was delighted with the plan and set out at once with the fox. He trotted lightly, guiding her by starlight, until they came within sight of the farmyard. Then the fox stopped and lifted his narrow snout. "There, cousin," he whispered, "see the fold. You art strong and swift, and you may creep in unseen. As for me, I shall go to the far side and look whether a careless chicken strays near the fence. Between us, we shall make a feast fit for the child." So said the fox, but slyness was ever in his heart. He did not go to the far side of the farmyard at all, but instead sat himself down at the entrance to the forest, stretched out his legs, and rested in comfort. Meanwhile, the she-wolf, eager to do her part, crept into the stable where the sheep lay. But a great dog was there, sharper of ear than she had reckoned. No sooner had she set paw upon the straw than he sprang up with a roar, and his barking rang out so loud that the farm awoke in an instant. Peasants came running, their lanterns flaring in the dark. They seized Mistress Wolf, and as punishment, they poured over her a burning mixture prepared for washing, so hot that her skin smarted and her fur smoked. With a howl of pain, she broke free at last and dragged herself outside, her body aching, her pride wounded. And there, not far off, lay the fox, feigning misery. He groaned and cried out, "Ah, dear mistress, gossip, how ill I have fared. The peasants fell upon me, beat me cruelly, and broke every limb I had. If you do not wish me to lie here and perish, you must take pity and carry me upon your back." The she-wolf, though scorched and trembling, thought more of her crafty kinsman than of herself. Slowly, painfully, she stooped, lifted the fox onto her shoulders, and bore him away toward her den. Each step was torment to her, yet she murmured, "Courage, cousin, I shall save you, though I myself can scarcely walk." But when at last they reached her dwelling, the fox leapt lightly down, nimble as ever, his body unscathed. He laughed loud and long, and his eyes shone with malice. "Farewell, dear mistress, gossip," he cried. "May the roasting you have had do you good. For my part, am sound and hearty." With that, he bounded away into the forest, his brush high, leaving the she-wolf bewildered and betrayed. And from that day forth, she remembered that the fox's tongue was silver, but his heart was false. And she warned her son that fair words are often snares, and that cunning may serve itself before it serves its kin. Hans married. Once upon a time, in a quiet village that lay between fields and forests, there lived a young peasant by the name of Hans. He was a simple fellow, neither clever nor foolish, but so mild of heart that he obeyed whatever was told him without question. Now Hans had an uncle, a sly man, who wished to see his nephew married to a wealthy bride, for he thought to better his own standing in the bargain. So one day, when the snow lay heavy upon the roof and the wind rattled the shutters, the uncle took Hans and seated him firmly behind the stove. He heaped the fire high until the tiles grew hot and glowing, and then he set before Hans a steaming pot of milk and a great loaf of white bread. Into Hans's palm He pressed a newly minted farthing that shone as if it were a golden coin. "Now listen well," Hans said the uncle, wagging his finger. "Hold that farthing tight in your hand. Crumble the bread into the milk, and stir not a step from this spot until I return. If you do all this, fortune will smile upon you." "Yes," answered Hans, with all obedience. "I shall do exactly as you say." And so he sat with the coin clenched in his fist and the bread and milk before him, thinking no further thought. Then the uncle, who had dressed himself in a pair of patched and much-worn trousers, strode off to the neighboring village, where lived the daughter of a rich peasant. Standing before her father, the old miser, the uncle bowed low and said, "Good sir, will you not give your daughter to my nephew Hans? You shall have an honest man for her, steady in his ways, and sensible enough to please any house." The miser narrowed his eyes. "And how does it stand with his fortune? Has he bread to break? Or must my daughter chew crusts of poverty?" "Ah," said the wooer smoothly, "my nephew has everything one could wish. A snug hearth, a bit of money clinking in his hand, and bread in plenty. And as for land, why, he has as many patches as I myself." With that, he slapped the many sewn-on pieces of cloth that covered his trousers. Yet in that countryside, everyone knew that the word patch also meant a plot of land, large or small. The miser. Hearing this thought, Hans must indeed be well provided for. "Come, sir," said the uncle, "if you will, but take the trouble to walk home with me. Your eyes shall be convinced." Now the miser, greedy for gain and unwilling to miss such a chance, nodded at once. "If matters are as you say, then I will not stand in the way of the marriage." And thus the betrothal was made. And before long the bells rang, and the feast was set, and Hans had a bride without ever stirring from his stool behind the stove. On the day after the wedding, the young wife wished to see the fields and possessions that were promised her. Hans, who knew nothing of such things, took off his good Sunday coat and put on his smock frock, which was so patched that scarcely a bit of the old cloth remained. "I must not spoil my fine coat," said Hans in his gentle way, and off they went together. Whenever they came to a boundary line where one meadow ended and another began, Hans would stop point with his finger and slap a patch upon his frock. "That patch is mine," said he cheerfully, "and that one too, my dearest. Just look at it." He meant her to look at the stitches on his garment, but she, poor soul, stared wide-eyed at the great stretches of land and meadow, and thought all of it belonged to her husband. Thus she walked beside him in high spirits, dreaming of wealth, while Hans thought only of his coat. And so it was that the uncle's trick came true. Hans gained a wife, and the miser gave away his daughter, both believing themselves well matched. Now, if you should ask, were you yourself at the wedding? Why, yes, indeed, I was there. My headdress was woven of fresh white snow, but when the sun peeped out, it melted away and left me bare. My coat was spun of cobwebs, fine as lace. But I brushed too near the thorns, and it was torn to tatters. My shoes were made of clear glass, and when I stumbled on a stone, they rang out clink and broke clean in two. And so ends the tale of Hans and the patches where the fool was wiser than he knew. The miser was tricked by his own greed, and the bride learned too late that not every patch hides a field. The death of the little hen, once upon a time in a quiet village where the fields rolled gently and the nut trees grew thick upon the hills, there lived a little cock and a little hen. They were not grand creatures of the forest, nor mighty beasts of prey, but simple companions who shared their days wandering from hedge to hedge, scratching at the earth and taking delight in the smallest of things. One bright morning, when the air still held the coolness of dawn and the grass was silvered with dew, they agreed together to walk to the nut hill. The cock said, "Let us go there, dear hen, and gather the fallen nuts, for the squirrels have left many scattered upon the ground." The hen nodded, and they made a solemn pact, as friends often do. Whichever of them found a kernel first should share it with the other, for neither wished to be selfish. Or so it seemed. They went pecking here and there beneath the trees, until at last the little hen, sharp of eye and quick of beak, discovered a nut greater than any she had ever seen before. Its shell was thick, its kernel rich, and it seemed a treasure too fine to divide. A thought of greed crossed her mind, and she whispered within herself, "I will eat this alone and say nothing to my companion." She cracked the nut with effort, but alas, the kernel was so large that when she tried to swallow it, it stuck fast in her throat. Her chest heaved, her eyes grew wide with fear, and she felt the cruel hand of choking. In her distress, she cried out to her faithful friend, "Cock, beg thee, run as swiftly as thy legs may carry thee, and fetch me water, else I shall perish." The cock, startled and alarmed, set off at once. He flew down the hill across the meadow until he came to a spring bubbling clear among the stones. There he called out, "O stream, lend me thy water for my companion." The little hen lies upon the nut hill with a kernel in her throat, and unless she drinks, she will choke and die. But the spring, like many a thing in fairy tales, would not give freely. It answered, "Bring me first a thread of red silk from the bride who dwells nearby, and then I shall grant thee water." So the cock hurried on his heart pounding. He came to the bride who sat in her chamber, spinning bright silk for her wedding garments. He cried, "Bride, I pray thee, give me some red silk, for I must carry it to the well. The well must give me water. The water must I take to the nut hill, for my little hen is choking, and her life hangs by a thread." The bride answered, "First, fetch me the wreath of flowers that hangs upon the willow, for without it I cannot part with my silk." The cock, though weary, obeyed. He flew to the willow, by the river seized the wreath in his beak, and bore it back to the bride. She gave him then a length of red silk, which he hastened to the spring. The spring, seeing the silk, at last poured forth water into a small vessel. The cock clutched it tightly, for he thought, "Now I shall save her life." But when he reached the nut hill, it was too late. The hen lay still and silent, her feathers ruffled by the wind, her eyes closed forever. The cock set down the water and wept bitterly. His cries rang through the forest, and soon creatures of every kind gathered to mourn. 6 little mice, tender of heart, said, "We shall build her a carriage to bear her to her grave." They fashioned a tiny cart of twigs and leaves, and when it was done, they harnessed themselves before it, while the cock sat solemnly and drove. As they made their way, they met the fox. "Where goest thou, little cock?" asked he. "I go to bury my dear hen," answered the cock. "Then let me come also," said the fox. "Yes," replied the cock, "but sit at the back of the carriage, for my small horses cannot drag thee in the front." So the fox climbed aboard, and after him came the wolf, the bear, the stag, the lion, and at length all the beasts of the wood, until the little carriage was heavy with mourners. Slowly they rolled on until they came to a stream. "How shall we cross?" said the cock. Then a straw lying nearby said, "I will stretch myself across, and ye shall pass over me." They thanked the straw, but when the 6 mice stepped upon it, the straw slipped away, and all the mice tumbled into the water and were drowned. Once more they were in peril, until a glowing coal hopped forth and said, "I will span the stream. Cross quickly, ere my fire go out." But the coal touched the water, hissed, and died, leaving naught but ashes. At last, a stone gray and steadfast pitied them, and laid itself across the stream. Over this bridge, the cock carefully drew the carriage. He reached the far bank with the body of his hen, but when he sought to pull over, the beasts who sat behind their weight was too great. The carriage slipped back, and all the forest beasts, with fox, wolf, bear, stag, and lion together, fell into the stream and were drowned. Thus the cock was left all alone with the lifeless hen. With his beak, he scraped a grave in the earth, laid her gently within, and heaped a little mound above. There he perched mourning without ceasing until grief overcame him, and he too died. And so the tale ends with silence upon the hill, where once the cock and hen had gone in joy.